Welcome to ProcureNXT. I'm Leah Pelletier, and I'm thrilled to be here with the ProcureNXT community today. I'm the co-producer of ProcureNXT. I work in procurement and workforce strategy at Trillian. So it's my pleasure to introduce Carolyn Joshua, President and CEO of Trillian Inc. Carolyn is a visionary leader in technology services industry and has guided Trillian to become a trusted provider of global workforce solutions for numerous Fortune 500 companies. So Carolyn, over to you to introduce our featured speakers today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you with us for another insightful session at ProcureNXT. At ProcureNXT, we believe together innovative leaders who are shaping the future of procurement and workforce strategy. And I'm so glad you're here to be a part of it. Today, we're joined by exceptional leaders, each bringing a unique perspective and a wealth of experience in contingent workforce strategy. So let's meet today's guests and speakers. First, let me introduce Carrie McDowell. Carrie brings a deep and comprehensive understanding of contingent workforce programs, with experience spanning multiple facets of the transportation industry. She currently serves as Program Manager, Contingent Workforce at Lyft, where she leads a global CW program managing over 20 million in annual MSP spend. Carrie's program sits under talent acquisition, reflecting a modern integrated approach to workforce strategy. Before joining Lyft, she held roles across the buyer, MSP, and supplier sides of the ecosystem, supporting companies like Apple Maps, Uber, and Cruise. Here's a fun fact about Carrie. She played soccer all the way through college at Cal Poly Pomona. So thank you for being here, Carrie.
Thanks for having me.
Next, I'm excited to introduce Natalie Javed. Natalie is a seasoned leader in contingent workforce management with over a decade of experience designing impactful non employee strategies at companies like Snowflake, Airbnb, and ServiceNow. She's been instrumental in implementing and optimizing global CW programs, expanding into new regions, and enhancing visibility and operational efficiency. Natalie is also a passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and is known for fostering strong cross functional partnerships and driving continuous improvement. Here's a fun fact about Natalie. She's a certified yoga teacher with over 500 hours of training. She teaches at Yoga Source Palo Alto and recently earned her Reiki Level 2 certification. That's wonderful. Glad to have you here with us, Natalie.
Thank you. Excited to be here with you all as well.
And finally, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's session, Jeremy. Jeremy serves as the VP of Strategic Workforce Solutions here at Trillian. With over 20 years in the contingent workforce industry, Jeremy brings extensive experience having held leadership roles across the supplier, MSP, and buyer sides. He's been responsible for scaling programs and driving strategy and operations for major organizations, including Google, Verily, Tesla, and Sutter Health. And here's a one fun one from Jeremy. Michael Jordan shot a free throw with his eyes closed in a live game. Ask Jeremy about it. He's part of the story, and I'm sure he'd love to share. And it's also on YouTube. So with that, let's go ahead with our session today, and over to you, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, and greetings, everyone. We're excited to have you with us today for this very special episode with both Carrie and Natalie. Today's topic, aligning forces, best practices, and stakeholder management in contingent workforce success, is a topic that I'm sure resonates with a lot of folks on this call. So we're excited to bring it to you guys today. So I'd like to take this opportunity to kind of set the stage for everyone as we kind of dive into this topic. So Carrie, Natalie, so picture this. You sign your offer letter, you complete the onboarding paperwork, the background check, you coordinate with the recruiter and the coordinator and the hiring manager to get your start date. You send over your bio to the hiring manager. The hiring manager announces your arrival and welcomes you to the team. So just kind of picture that. And what I want to do right now is kind of lay the foundation for this next question. So we'd like to have both of you kind of walk us through your frame of mind as you prepare for the next 30, 60, 90 days. Talk us through about what your approach was when you took on the role, and at what stage was your program in when you took it over? Growth, maturity, decline, etc. So Carrie, why don't we start off with you?
Cool. Happy to start. So a little bit of interesting fact, at least coming to Lyft, I was 8 weeks postpartum with my second child. So you could imagine I was actually really tired, super stressed that I was starting a new gig and running my first program on my own at that time. And so I really wanted to get my head on straight, right? So for me, those first 60 days was really just trying to understand, what our program here at Lyft was. Where had it come from? We had recently moved from procurement over to talent acquisition. So what did that mean? Why did that occur? And really just kind of take it in as to all the things that we had documented and lack of documentation to ensure I understood the start to finish of what the program had at that point. It was also really important for me to take the time, and I think I got this from a previous role, but take the time to meet my stakeholders. So, my people in procurement and legal, our HRBPs, all the different facets of the team here. And really, I think one thing that I personally might have missed a little bit within that is truly going to some of those stakeholders and organizational groups that really could have helped me in the beginning of my time. But in general, I think it was really, really important to take that time to get to know the internal team. In addition to that, I also obviously had my MSP underneath us. And so really understanding like where they were within the program, how long they had been here, and they had been with us for 3 years, where the stability was within our program, and making sure that, I understood their day-to-day tasks as well. So we went through a lot of process mapping, a lot of understanding, what they deal with on a day-to-day, what keeps them up at night and busy during the day, and so on. So.
Great. Nat?
Yeah, I could echo a lot of what Carrie just said. I identify and definitely can echo with a lot of what you just said, Carrie. Typically, when I join any organization, I like to begin with a listening tour, so to speak, and similar to what Carrie was saying, really scheduling dedicated time with the key stakeholders and the largest end users to understand the lay of the land and the landscape, what's going on. And my goal is ultimately to learn from their experiences, identify where we have opportunities and where we have challenges, and then be able to take, those consistent themes that I'm pulling from those conversations to pinpoint immediate priorities that can be addressed, in whether or not, which ones can go in the parking lot and really aren't major priorities. And I, in general, try to avoid making any immediate changes unless it's really a critical compliance risk that demands urgent attention. When I joined at Snowflake, we were first generation. We had nothing in place. And so upon starting at the organization and conducting that listening tour, I also partnered with our procurement team. And we immediately conducted an RFP to identify a partner, an MSP partner. And we initially ended up selecting an MSP with a proprietary VMS, so an all-encompassing solution. A choice which I later wish I had gone with a decoupled solution, but fortunately, we got a second chance. And last year, we were able to successfully implement a new MSP and VMS and international payroll partner with, all of which now is decoupled services. And I've never managed a program in the past with this level of separation. And I think I always kind of defaulted to, it was easier to manage one single partner, but having this structure really makes it so much easier, I have found, to implement changes when needed. And it's been really freeing for us to have, complete reliance on a single partner.
No, thank you both for sharing. And, I can't disagree with anything either of you said. I echo everything. For me, when I took over my first gen program, both at Google Verily, one of the first things I noticed that when I joined, it was extremely daunting in that I felt like everybody came to me with all these, their excitement that, hey, we're going to start changing things and we're going to implement everything. And I felt like our department, our team was kind of nebulous in that everything came to our department. And so for me, my frame of mind was like, okay, well, what are our OKRs? What are our company OKRs? Kind of like, how does our overall company, our overall team, and what does our impact on those OKRs have to do with that, right? So what are my priorities that my leader wants to roll out and launch and kind of make sure that we're following and kind of take it from there. So for me, it's like, all right, love to do all 50 of these things on the wish list, but like for this quarter, as I step into this new role, like number one, I want to do a listening tour. I want to go on a road show. And then also just understanding, what really is our company's goals and how do we make an impact and how do we make contributions towards that goal, right? All right. Thank you for that. Moving on. So once we've kind of laid the foundation, I think the next step, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, is really to start earning the trust and respect of your stakeholders and internal teams that you work with cross-functionally. So as you begin to weave your program into the fabric of the company, what steps do you take to earn the respect of your team, the org, cross-functional departments, and key stakeholders? And let's start with Natalie.
All right. Yeah. This is a good one. I mean, honestly, to earn respect, I really think you have to prove to all of those parties you just mentioned that you are trustworthy. And to me, and I know I've talked about this with a few others in the industry, really trust is built through being consistent over time. So proving that consistency over time that you can deliver on whatever it is that you are promising. And experience is paramount for our program success. We are truly committed to ensuring, that we have a consistently positive experience for everyone that's in our ecosystem, from the business to the talent to our staffing partners, any part of our ecosystem. And really, this is important that we maintain high standards, and the key to fostering trust across all these relationships are creating exceptional experiences. So my team and I, we actively engage with the stakeholders and cross-functional partners by staying connected through regular meetings, proactively soliciting feedback, and prioritizing, when we do get feedback, we're acting on it. When we see consistent themes emerging, we're looking into that, seeing what kind of operational changes we can make. How can we improve or enhance the experience? Like, what is the root cause? And we're always working to continuously improve. So whenever we're having projects as well, we want to make sure that we're consulting all of the parts of the ecosystem and making sure not only like we're consulting, but we're also informing all the parts of the ecosystem if there's any change coming. And that's really to make sure that we're fostering transparency and collaboration. One thing that we're working on right now is refining our survey philosophy. And really, we want to figure out like what is the optimal frequency. We don't want people to have survey fatigue. We want to make sure that what we are when we survey, it's meaningful, and that the feedback that we're going to get, that we're going to actually show that we're taking actionable steps to addressing whatever it is that we're hearing, whatever it is that we're seeing. And so I really think that those are some of the key ways to earn respect. But again, going back to trust and making sure that we are showing that we are consistent with all that we are saying and all that we're doing.
No, I love that, setting standards, building a good experience for all internal stakeholders and teams, and then obviously being mindful of how often you're communicating, but still having that regular cadence, but not, to your point, not having that survey fatigue, which is a real thing. A lot of companies definitely get impacted by that. But thank you, Nat. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I really pride my actions on how I earn respect. So as many people that have worked with me in the past, I'm one to be right there. Like they ask a question, I'm right there answering it. And I really think that's an important factor being in the contingent workforce space, because, there's things that are always changing. And, you could have the best documentation about a CW program, but the matter of fact that next week something's going to change and what probably going to be behind on documenting or telling the community within that it has changed. And so I think it's really, really important that you're always just honest when somebody comes to you with an issue. I'll give an example. Even this morning, I had a manager come to me and say, hey, somebody converted from a contingent worker to an FT and they have 2 accounts and their access is all messed up. And I was like, I hear you. I will make sure I'm here till the end until this gets fixed. But I promise you, like, this isn't the first time it's happened either, right? And just being honest with them, like we're all people, we all make mistakes, and there's always a reason for us to get better. So just listening to that manager, what their issue was, I think is really, really important. Additionally, as I've taken my time here, our program doesn't have like the best of raps internally. It's just, it's there, you need to use it, but the quality isn't necessarily always there. And so I take that with a grain of salt. If I am, coming from a manager and I'm telling them you have to come use my program, like I'm like, you have to come use my program, but here's what we're working on, right? Here are the things that I know are going to be a challenge or could be a challenge in our time here. And so kind of just being upfront and honest, like I'm not perfect right now. I don't know if I'll ever be perfect or our program will ever be perfect, but that's okay. But we will help get you what you need. And then I think, secondly, for the supplier's sake, I really, really pride myself on my supplier engagement. I've focused, I think, my time thus far here at Lyft really into that. We've removed quite a lot of our suppliers and brought in some, highly trusted, great relationship suppliers, some like ourselves on this call. And I think, that being said, I think that's really, really important. We have a supplier forum coming up in a couple of weeks and, educating my suppliers, making sure that they know like what we're doing here at Lyft, of course, what I'm allowed to tell them. And then, just making sure that they're always in the know as much as I can allow them for what's new and coming within our company. I think, I've been at places, I won't name them, but you can see what's on my resume. I've been at places where it's like, everything's confidential, everything's scary, like you can't tell them anything. And I just really don't think that's the right partnership to have with a company that is really supporting your growth or aspects within your growth. So I really, really pride myself on telling them as much as I can, in the moment.
Yeah, I think vulnerability, transparency, being very open, but also at the same time, just listening is very key. And then you touched on suppliers too. Nat, I want to give you a chance to respond on how you also kind of earn the respect of your suppliers.
I mean, very similar to Carrie, obviously, like we can't do what we do without our staffing partners. Without them, our program is nothing. And so really making sure that we are staying connected to them. We have a very small, intimate program. We do not have a lot of staffing partners. And we've done that intentionally because we want to make sure that we know our partners and we want to make sure our partners understand Snowflake's vision, mission, and our culture. And we also want to make sure that they know that they're not in some black hole of a program. So we are going to be communicating with them when they reach out, when they have questions. We meet with them on a regular basis, providing them with updates, and they're a part of our survey plan. We want to hear from them as well.
No, 100%. I totally agree with you. And I think, with us having that experience on the supplier side, it definitely helps. Like we've seen it on the MSP side. We've seen it happen on the buyer side where things sort of just go into a black hole and it's like, what's going on? Like what's the update? What's happening with the program? What's happening with a rec activity? So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. And I would just say, sorry, Jeremy, I would just say too, I mean, we depend on our partners to tell us what's happening out in the market, right? You guys have boots on the ground. We've kind of, we're in our little isolated worlds. We are not out there seeing what you're seeing. And I cannot say how much we depend on the market intelligence, the benchmarking that we get from our partners. So that really is critical for us as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I think there's been more times than not that I always will, call a supplier. I'm like, okay, I need something by tomorrow. Like, how crazy am I for asking this?
No,
But I'm
and
still gonna ask for it by tomorrow too.
Yeah.
we've seen it on the other side too, where it's like, a buyer's asking us, we're like, what are you talking about? But then when we go on the other side, it's like, oh yeah, we need it like now. Like, so you tend to lean on your suppliers who is going to deliver for you. So yeah, totally. Kind of a bonus question in regards to earning trust and respect. Were there any out of the box strategies that you guys employed with regards to that might have netted a net positive outcome for building trust?
I think for me, one thing that sticks out, especially with my time here, is kind of using my support, externally. I, went to our friendly consultant world and said, who can I tap for a few questions? And I think it was really, really important by doing so is I was able to, work with a consultant to help me build my executive plan, because I could think that things are all awesome and great, but it's really great to see an outsider be able to review that and give me, strategic efforts to really show the importance of the things that I'm asking for. It also does help in conversations internally of like, hey, this isn't just me writing this on the paper. Like I've consulted other experts within the industry that have far more experience than myself as well. So I think that was a really important factor. And, being a first-time program owner, I think was really important to show, the value that I bring I'm bringing, my own experience, but I'm also bringing a community behind us to support, Lyft at its best. So,
Natalie?
Yeah, love that, Carrie. So one thing that we've done, which is a little bit different, and it is focused more on our staffing partners, was at our last staffing partner summit, we invited one of our talent acquisition leaders to present on the Snowflake recruitment journey. And she shared how TA attracts and engages talent, beginning with the Snowflake story, why candidates should choose to join Snowflake, and really parlaying that for our staffing partners on how they can leverage that approach to attract talent for our temporary worker positions. She also walked our partners through, again, this internal approach to the various different stages of the talent funnel, and she shared some really insightful lessons that she had learned from the business, what the data was telling us. And, we were able to share with our partners some helpful resources. And then at the end of that, we were able to officially launch our new staffing partner playbook. And the playbook it also encompassed, many different points that she covered, as well as rules of engagement with our program. And this is something now that we use for all of our staffing partners. And so that, as they add new resources, they're able to understand the Snowflake story and also the rules of engagement. But, the feedback from our partners was, they were just so happy to have that inside look, and they really felt like it was a big hit and has helped them continue to attract talent for our program. And then also the TA leader, really coming in and getting to see what it is that we do. I think there's some level of understanding, but coming in and being in the room with all of our partners and getting to hear from them and talk to them really gave them a glimpse into, wow, these are some trusted partners and they know their stuff. So I think that helped to earn credibility and trust, within talent acquisition. And then, with our partners, they saw how committed we are to their relationship.
And I love that strategy, just about, kind of getting TA ingrained into, your program, where you're kind of involving them in the process to make them feel like, oh, okay, I'm part of this team. I'm part of this overall strategy. And I think when you get someone, that can deliver that type of message to your staffing partners, it builds that trust even closer, right? It builds that bond between you two. And it's like, maybe we can do other projects together, right?
Absolutely. It's like coins in the bank.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something else really important, in that leveraging the data, right? What is the data telling us? And when you're able to kind of share with the stakeholders what it is that you're trying to implement, what it is you're trying to roll out, but then backing that information up with data, it's hard to refute that, right? It's one of those things where it's just like, can't argue with you. Let's do it. Let's move forward. And, I can't stress enough how important it is to back everything you do within the CW program, especially with data, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the world that we are living in, and everybody wants to see the data nowadays. What is the data telling us? What are the trends?
Right. Even when we're talking to staffing partners, right? It's just like, talk to us about your numbers, right? Like, you want to join our program, but how are you actually performing, right? So it's like, numbers don't lie, right?
No,
So
absolutely. I've been in some staffing partner scorecard sessions where our staffing partners have brought their own metrics. We're giving them the metrics that we're seeing, and if they hear something that doesn't add up, then they've come prepared with what they've been measuring on their end as well. That is something that stood out to me and highly impressed me. But people also, they want to see the data, and if they're measuring it themselves, they might have some questions for you if it's not stacking up on what they're seeing.
Yeah, guilty as charged. All right. So let's move on to kind of our next section within this overall topic and theme. So we've talked a little bit about earning trust. Now let's talk about the meat and potatoes of it all. Kind of like let's talk about overcoming objections, right? Obviously, we experience this daily when we're owning a program, whether you're on the client side or MSP side, you're always constantly having to put out fires, right? And so my question for both of you is, what is your approach to dealing with a difficult stakeholder or one who isn't buying into what you're trying to implement across the system? So Natalie, let's start with you.
All right, sounds good. I mean, I know we all have plenty of stories, but I think over time, the approach that I have really taken it with a difficult stakeholder, one that's resistant to, maybe a implementation or whatever the change might be, is one that's more rooted in understanding and empathy. Maybe you can tie that to my yoga teacher training, but I really believe that all resistance stems from a lack of understanding, or they perceive some sort of loss of control, or there's something that's making them uncomfortable. And so, really in general, human nature, our reaction to change is that we're pretty much creatures of habit and we don't like change. But the world in which we live in is rapidly evolving. I mean, it is changing so fast. And, it's not uncommon for us to cling to the status quo. That's totally understandable. But really, when I encounter a situation like this, one of the first steps that I like to take is to dig deep and uncover what that root cause of their resistance is. So I really want to understand, what specifically are they not aligned with? So having a discovery conversation, right? And then how will the changes that we're proposing, or whatever the situation might be, what is it genuinely impacting in their day-to-day operations? Like what is that? So getting to the root of what's really going on. And, recently, we encountered a business leader who was resisting adopting one of our newly implemented partners, and they wanted to stick with our incumbent provider. And after, digging in and understanding where their concerns lied, which was primarily due to some cultural nuances specific to that country, we ultimately, in that specific instance, made an exception, and we agreed to continue that all new resources in that specific country would continue with the incumbent while, expanding. And we made it very clear that as we expand into new countries, new regions, we are going to leverage our new partner. And, ultimately our goal as managers of these contingent workforce programs is to serve the business. And we, if I can accommodate, or my team can accommodate a specific request, and in doing so, we're going to improve the experience for the business and our talent, or whatever part of the ecosystem that might be, then that's the most important outcome. I think it's about finding that common ground and a solution that works for everyone. And one thing that I will say that has been a challenge for me in general is getting out of this mindset of, well, that's how I've always done it. That's how I've always done it. And I've really had to, look at from one organization to the other, completely different, what the goals are, what the priorities are, and what do I need to do? What do I need to build and offer to this organization? It's not going to be the same as the last.
Right.
And so taking, that approach, really of just empathy and understanding, like, what is it, why are they resisting, and trying to figure that out. And then working with the business is how I've started to tackle some of our difficult stakeholders.
Love that. Carrie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to just, start off with the empathy. I think that Natalie said of like, you just got to tell them like, I'm here to support you and like, we will figure it out together. I think that's the biggest piece of when you are working with, a team or organization that just is resistant. There's definitely a reason why they are resistant. They've already gotten to a place where it's starting to work and they don't want to change, or they just don't trust, they don't understand your program enough, which is what I kind of deal with here at Lyft. Is they don't know all the cool things we're doing, all the changes that we're implementing, and I need to make sure that our team's doing a better job educating internally, from top down and bottom to the top, right, of anyone that we're touching on day to day. They understand where we're at, where we're hoping to head, and just make sure that they know that we're not perfect, right? I think for me in particular, an example is I have one organization that really just, I would say, pushes the button of like what our program has done thus far. So they kind of are one of the leading organizations of like new business, if you will, or new places, new things. And so like, as we all probably see, and I know Natalie even mentioned like going into new countries, it's like, if somebody comes to me and says, I need a worker in, I don't know, China, I'm like, well, I don't have that yet and I'm not ready for it. And so really, really, taking a step back and understanding, I think that organization was a big initiative for me. So I went, all the way to the top as high as I could go that would, listen and talk to me, and said, just tell me about your team. Like, what are you guys up against? Like, I think I understand, but I don't really understand. And I think that is really important to just, I took that time and, just to get where their head's at and where they're going, and to tell them like, I'm going to be here probably for a while. And like in the long run, your team's going to need me, right? Because we don't have these entities there. So you're probably going to need contingent labor at some point within this new stuff. And how can we work together, right? So for me, it was like bringing on a supplier that I probably would have, shunned away, if you will. I was like, no, I need them. I need them as much as they want me and us, and so, making it work, right? It wasn't the exact way I probably would have done a staffing agreement with a typical supplier off the street or one that I knew, but we made it work, right? And we made it work for the business. And I think that was the most important, and how I've really built the rapport with my team. And I think it was a funny story is I've been working really hard with all the leadership on this group in particular. And the other day I felt I had a really big win. I got a message and it was like, I just like read from the start to your finish of your global policy, and it's one of the bestly written docs I've ever seen. I'm like, heck yeah. I was in the team meeting, so it was perfect. I said, team, we just got it. Like, you guys are doing great. And I was like, it was the best moment, for me. And it's like, that's all I want. That's all, that's all we're here to do, is just to make it better. It's always going to be complicating. It's always going to be, a weird road to get to, to the candidate or whatever, the case may be. But I think it's really, really important to just always listen and make sure that you're doing it together, right? It's not a competition. It's not, your team versus my team. We're all one team, right? Being internal. And I think it's really important that we understand and move forward within our goals that way. So.
Yeah, love that. And you're going to laugh at this, Carrie, because I think for me, similar to Nat, I tend to, look at the root cause analysis of certain things. And so the reason why I say you might laugh is because I always think about TJ. I don't know if you remember TJ.
Yes, I love the guy.
TJ, he said something that really resonated with me. It's a framework, and it's the 5 whys, right? So it's like when you're dealing with a stakeholder and they say, no, I want to use supplier ABC. Well, why? Well, it's because they always provide good quality candidates. Well, why? Well, because, they're really fast and they submit on time. And, I just don't like dealing with other suppliers. Well, why? And so it's like you kind of get down to that root cause. And eventually it's because, I have a relationship. I've known this person for like 30 years. And that's why. Right.
Yeah.
So
I remember being in countless meetings with him doing that, by the way.
Yeah. So I always use that framework when I'm dealing with stakeholders, and it's just like asking the 5 whys. So I think that would be one of the things I would recommend people putting into practice sooner rather than later. All right. Moving along. So I would say like the last question I want to bring up, and this is kind of the last part of the journey within stakeholder management, is kind of then creating that harmony, right? We've dealt with overcoming objections. Now it's like you got to a pretty good rhythm. You kind of have a good understanding, the lay of the land, and you feel like you're operating at a somewhat optimal level. But then how do you kind of maintain that harmony, or how do you create that harmony, right? And so my question to both of you is, now that you found your stride within the organization, what are some best practices this audience needs to put into practice immediately in order to more effectively manage your stakeholders? And let's go with Carrie.
Yeah. So I kind of took a basic approach to this answer, really. What are the main things that I feel like we've created this program since I've been here on? And my main things were our logo, right? Like, who are we? How do we mention our name? Who knows us? And our global workforce policy. If it's not in there, it should be in there, right? So if you don't know by the time you read through that, 20-page document, then like I have a problem within my team. We have a Slack channel, right? So if anybody has, any questions throughout the day, they're able to come to us, and we, make sure that all of our hiring managers are in that Slack. There might be a day where that gets to be too big, but for now we use that in different capacities at Lyft as well. So it works for us. And then our alias, right? Like our email alias is like our live, if you have a question, you can either go to the Slack channel or you can send an email and it creates a ticket for us. And I think if I can ensure that every manager we work with, or every VP or every director, whoever it is, knows about those things and like they understand that, they'll at least know where to go when they have the issue, right? They'll have, if they get a question about a contractor needing to travel to Timbuktu, sure. I have one of those 5 things they can go to, and they're going to get their answer eventually, right? So I think those are, really where I base like my best practices is like, don't do too much, because we all know that contingent labor, 1, changes a lot, and 2, is the hardest thing to explain to anyone that's not in contingent labor. And so I think that's really, really important to just drive home the basics, and everything else will come through, if they come to you in the right avenue.
Great. Natalie.
Yeah, no, first of all, love that. I'm looking into creating tickets for our Slack channel. Takeaway off of Carrie's, approach. But really, for us, I think one of what we like to do with managing our stakeholders is relationship building. So I think relationships truly matter, because when an issue arises or guidance is needed, the stakeholders that you've fostered those relationships, they're going to naturally come to you if you already have that trust and that relationship. And so we put that into practice by having regular check-ins, consistent meetings with our key business stakeholders. And, that is really been very helpful, and also becoming a trusted partner. So our team, and in order to do that, one of the things that we have done is we've created these contingent workforce business partner roles within my team, and we have regular check-ins with our end users, focusing on understanding what their OKRs are, their key priorities, sharing relevant data with them to help them understand what the contingent workforce landscape is, and providing any reports that they need so that they can take action. We also let them know that we're here to partner with them when it comes to fiscal year planning. And that's one thing that we're working on, kind of elevating that this year, is looking at the past 3 years for our main departments that utilize our program is what year-over-year growth have we seen? And, this is amongst all different non-employee types. So we can take that data, we can take that information to them as they're preparing for this upcoming fiscal year and use that for their planning. By building these relationships, having these check-ins, we're hoping that, we can position ourselves as, consultants to the business, and that they know that we are always available for any kind of conversation. We even tell them, listen, if you don't know if it's in our realm, but you just need to talk it through, come to us. We're always happy to help you solution. Oftentimes I have the business come to me, and even if I don't have the answer, we're helping them connect them to the right group, the right cross-functional partner that can assist them. Oftentimes it is procurement, and I don't think we mentioned this at the top of the call. I actually do sit within HR, but I partner very closely with procurement. That is our strongest cross-functional partner. We couldn't get anything done without the relationships that we have within our procurement department. So ultimately, our approach is really, again, all around relationships. Relationships matter. And a key to any strong, sturdy relationship, going back to trust. And again, that trust is built by proving you can be consistent over time. And that's what we're trying to do when we build these relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And one other thing I would also add too is just educating the stakeholders that we're not just a department that fills temporary roles, right? We're actually part of the broader strategy of the company. And I think a lot of stakeholders lose sight of that, or just are just not educated enough to understand, kind of put two and two together. But at the end of the day, I think a lot more companies need to leverage contingent workforce programs as an overall strategy for their workforce strategies, right? That, instead of filling all these positions full-time, like, why not think about things in kind of project scopes, right? And so that's the other part of it too, is really just making sure that, one, you obviously are building those relationships, you're earning the trust, you're getting them kind of ingrained into the fabric of your program, but at the same time, making sure that we're part of the overall strategy of the company, right?
Absolutely. We can be a strategic lever, and, we kind of got to get out there and sell ourselves, make sure that they know that we're here. And also really, I think we've been forming relationships with our HRBPs, and that's going to be critical in addition to strengthening that relationship with talent acquisition. So
there's also, I've seen many organizations that will form a steering committee. And I think that's a great strategy as well, where they've got heads of departments that meet with contingent leaders and form kind of a steering committee that talks about the OKRs, the direction of the company's headed with. How does contingent workforce kind of get, more involved in some of those higher level decisions? And so that's another thing that I think a lot of companies should be thinking about as part of their overall strategy.
Absolutely. It's definitely been on our radar. I think I've thought about it. It's just, there's always a more important priority, and hard to get everybody together. But one day, Jeremy, one day.
One day we'll make it happen.
If you hire a contractor on your team, maybe they can do that project for you. Just kidding.
It's a business case. I like it.
Love it. Leverage the data. All right. Well, that wraps up with all the questions that I have for you guys today. I'm sure we can spend a lot more episodes talking more about this in a lot more detail. So I want to thank both of you guys for taking the opportunity and taking the time to meet with everybody, to share your best practices in this kind of topic. I think it's very relevant, very important, and I think it resonates with a lot of people. And so again, thank you both for being on this webinar. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and open things up to our Q&A session. So let's take a peek and see if we've got anything.
Yeah, it looks like we have one from the node.
All right. So it looks like the first question is it standard good practice to segregate staff aug vendors / suppliers from professional / managed service vendors? Do you recommend that we have a separate master agreement tailored to these types of engagements? Great question.
I'm happy to chime in to start. I would say absolutely yes. because the two types of engagements, at least internally, from a program standpoint, are managed very differently.
Mhm.
I think if a contingent workforce program is managing both SOW and staff augmentation, it could resonate where it's a similar MSA. But in my case, we are separate, right? I don't necessarily manage the full capacity of our SOW modules. So there's a different even type of payment to the supplier, right? So there's a lot of differences that we internally manage between the two types of agreements. I don't know if that really-
Especially when you kind of align with different orgs, right? I think that also makes a difference. Whether you're under TA or under procurement, there's different priorities and different kind of roadmaps, if you will, and that the two teams are doing completely separate things. And so that's something else that's, there's so many variables involved when you think about that. Now, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No. I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying, and we take a similar approach, Carrie. We have different agreements. I personally don't like it when a staff augmentation partner is also providing SOW services. I think it muddies the water, and unless you have, just 100% crisp, clear communications, you're going to end up with misclassified work. And we absolutely have different agreements. In the US, our staffing partner agreement is managed by our MSP. And the terms and conditions within that are very different from our PSA that, our legal team has put together. And there's different liabilities. There's different IP protections. There's different, especially now, there's different terms in regards to data protection and whatever it might be. So you absolutely, I agree, Carrie, you need different agreements, and our team does not manage or govern the PSA. That's really managed by procurement and legal. But we certainly do have them on different agreements, and I try not to let them straddle the fence. I really don't. It's never worked well.
It gets very messy very quickly. And I'm fine with switching. Like, I've had a supplier start, through an SOW and brought them into my program because I thought it would be beneficial. So I've seen that. But I've also seen, there's a lot of, most suppliers, I would say, try to really focus on one or the other. Of course, they can do both. But with each company, I think, they're connected, to that.
No, good. I see another question in here from Megan. In what ways are you transforming contingent workforce management from a transactional model to a collaborative partnership?
I a little bit touched on that. I mean, we're getting away from just the checking of the boxes to building those relationships to the business. It's taking more of an approach like an HRBP would, understanding the makeup of an organization, understanding, okay, these are your priorities. This is what you're working on. This is when you're going to need to lean into my team, and being able to be proactive and help them strategically build whatever it is that they're focusing on. So I think that's one way that we're working on that. We are still building that muscle. We're still trying to lay that foundation so that we've got our finance teams, our HRBP teams, procurement, TA, all of us coming together so that we're working more towards, I guess, a total talent approach, if you will, but we're not there yet. We're laying the foundation, and it takes time. I mean, it's a shift, right? It is a shift, and it's a mindset shift, and you have to have everybody on board for it to work.
Yeah. No one left off the ship, or it's not going to go well.
No. Exactly. Got another question. How are you preparing your contingent workforce strategy to leverage emerging technologies like AI? It's always a hot topic.
Yeah. That one's, sorry, Carrie, that one is one that we're working with right now. We're trying to look at ways in which we can leverage AI. Also, we don't have budget. So that's a bit of a challenge, right? It's like everyone wants to talk about AI and how we're leveraging it. But then at the same time, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. There are budget constraints. And so one thing is we're looking at how we can lean into our MSP, our partner. There are certain robotic automations that they have on their end that we're considering leveraging for our resource tracking module or headcount tracking. And then another thing that we're looking at leveraging is with procurement. We use a platform called Zip, and they're deploying a ton of agents within that platform that we're going to eventually train them them to look for misclassified staff augmentation on SOWs. So we will train these agents, like, what are the red flags that we're manually looking for today? So those are just a couple ways in which I think it's like low-hanging fruit for us, because it's not going to be, there's not a lot of cost involved.
Yeah.
I love the zip one. I am going to go to talk to my procurement team right after this about that and see if we can start doing something like that, because we just implemented Zip a few months ago. So I'm just tapping in on how it works and how we can utilize it internally more effectively.
Yeah. Carrie, have you guys been talking about use cases like with your teams?
Yeah. So I think, like, obviously there's a broader AI focus at every company, I think, at this point, probably, or I hope there is, because if not, they're going to be left behind somewhere. But I think, for Lyft, they're focused on a lot of our applications. And so, for me, a hot topic would be our VMS system and being able to find a VMS that has AI capabilities, things that could even connect to things like Slack, to be able to help with interview scheduling, like really the basics that are super time consuming. I'm pretty positive that my program coordinator on my MSP is spending 80% of her time looking at people's calendars, when like it should be a lot more straightforward, or I hope one day it's going to be a lot more straightforward, and that can go to like 10% of her time instead of 80. And then she can really, manage and work on things that, are more fun. So I think, that will be really cool for us. And then I think for AI as well, obviously, we don't have it today, but, resumes, right? Like, based on the job description compared to the candidate and what they're saying is on their resumes, like how closely are they connected to the actual job in hand? I don't think it's ever going to be 100 to 100, but just being able to quickly see that and show managers that, I think, will be really, really important. I'm sure a lot of us have managers that want to look at every single resume that's submitted. And if there's upwards of 10 resumes, that's a lot of time. So it's just easier to see it on a dashboard, or, it's just something that's a little bit more pleasing to the eye to compare candidates to one another. And it might not be the full understanding as to why we select a candidate over another, or why we're going to go interview somebody, but at least it gives us a parameter to kind of follow as we do that.
Yeah, I think kind of on the back end of it too is we have to think about, with the access that some of these companies have to personal data and information. It's like you have to be mindful of like what level of access are they going to have to this information? Do they have access to these calendars? If you're doing interview scheduling through AI, it's just there's a lot of things that need to be kind of fleshed out, and working collaboratively with your cross-functional groups before kind of like implementing something like AI for certain use cases, right? It's just something to be mindful of for certain suppliers and vendors out there. Sensitive information is definitely something companies think about.
And I love Brett Klinker's plug-in on OpenAI and chat.
Yeah. Shout out to Brett.
I love you, Brett.
That caught my eye too. I'm like over here looking at the comments.
Okay. I think that wraps up all the questions, unless we have some last minute ones coming in here. So let me just think if there's a question I want to ask you guys. I guess for me, in closing, my question would be, what would be the one takeaway you guys want to share with the audience that they said, okay, this is one thing I want you guys to take away from this call? What would that be?
I think for me, I think I've said this in different avenues and maybe other in other webinars or such that I've done, but like, we're all just doing a job and we all want to just do our best. And so I think it's really important to just make sure that you like take a step back when it gets crazy, because I feel like I do that all the time. And just, know that you're doing your best, and just make sure that that's always known. I think a lot of, program owners don't necessarily have that support always internally, because they don't understand like what you're actually dealing with, but we all deal with it. So we understand the stress, the pain, the long nights, the early mornings, all the things that are associated with, contingent workforce. And, just know that you're not the only one.
Yeah, I actually had a time block in my calendar, like at 2:30. That's take a wellness walk, like a 15
so important.
Step away, clear your head, recalibrate, all those things. And so how about you, Nat?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I talked about it a lot, so I'm just going to go back to it. But get out there and build those relationships. I think it's so easy for us to focus on, oh my God, I've got to get through all these emails. I've got all of these meetings that I've got to get to. And it's not just, having these like transactional conversations, but really building relationships, getting to know people too, right? Like beyond, Jeremy Whitlow, the VP of Strategic Solutions, right? Like I want to know about Carrie. Like I want to know, what it is that makes her tick and what are those things that she's passionate about. I think that that's really important. So it's not just like building a relationship for relationship's sake, but getting to know people.
Yep. We actually did have a last minute question come in, so we'll go ahead and take this really quick from Cindy. Is contingent, temporary labor, staff aug, and HR professional services managed by procurement?
You got to, say that one more time.
Yeah, sorry. Is contingent dash temporary labor slash staff aug in HR and professional services managed by procurement?
The spend for us is not. It's managed by my CW program. Do they utilize the data that I provide them and go and talk about it to all the players that they talk to? Yes, absolutely. I think spend is spend in my perspective, and procurement's always worried about spend, regardless if it's professional services or something else. So for us, to Natalie's point, we work really closely with procurement, and I think they're as accessible as we are, and we are as successful as they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just say, I mean, I think this varies from organization to organization. Like some organizations, these programs sit solely within procurement. Within my organization, we manage it from, people org, and we're solely responsible for the staff augmentation spend. And we have a small portion of SOW work that actually funnels through our team. But of course, procurement has their eyes on that and is aware of it. And that's some reporting that we share with them. And then the rest of our other services that are on SOWs run through procurement. So I think it varies from organization to organization and how it's set up. Really, that's how you're going to, just depending from one person to the next, you'll get a different answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're coming up on the hour, so I want to thank you both again for taking the time out of your day to join us, to share your knowledge with this audience. And again, to thank the audience as well for taking the time out of your day to attend this call. And I know you guys are going to receive a recording afterwards. And so in case you're wondering, yes, you'll get a recording via email. And with that, I'm going to let Carolyn wrap it up.
Yes. Hello, guys. Thank you, Jeremy. Wow, that was an insightful session. And I did know that you all will get along. So as we close, a heartfelt thank you to both of you, Carrie and Natalie, for your transformative insights. And you've shown us that contingent workforce management is actually just about people and purpose. Your commitment to empathy, vision, and innovative challenges always helps us to reimagine the future of work. Thank you for inspiring us to lead with intention and impact. A big thank you to Jeremy as well for skillfully moderating today's discussion and bringing us all together. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for your time and presence. We hope that you're leaving inspired, energized, and ready to drive impact in your own programs. So thank you once again. And until next time, network, excel, and transform.